Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 802 of the Juicebox Podcast. Welcome to the show. On today's episode, we'll be speaking with Krystal, whose child was diagnosed at 8 months old and has had type 1 diabetes for 6 years, and she's here today to share that story. While you're listening to it, please remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you're a U.S. resident who has type 1 diabetes or is the caregiver of someone with type 1, the T1D Exchange would love it if you could spend fewer than 10 minutes filling out their survey. It exists at t1dexchange.org/juicebox. When you complete the survey, which by the way is completely HIPAA compliant and anonymous, you'll be helping people living with type 1 diabetes, and you'll be moving diabetes research forward without ever leaving the comfort of your home. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. The podcast is also sponsored today by Touched by Type 1. Head over to touchedbytype1.org or find them on Facebook or Instagram to see what they're up to. I'll give you a hint. What they're up to is helping people with type 1 diabetes. It's pretty great. They're not asking you for anything. They just want you to come and take a look. Touchedbytype1.org. Last but not least, this episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by US Med. You can get your diabetes supplies the same way my daughter does, from US Med. All you have to do to get started is go to usmed.com/juicebox, or if you prefer, call 888-721-1514. Get your free benefits checked today from US Med, usmed.com/juicebox. If you have trouble remembering the sponsors' links, they're at juiceboxpodcast.com or in the show notes of the podcast player you're listening in right now. When you click on the links, you're keeping the production of the podcast going and making sure that it remains free for the listeners.
My name is Krystal, and I'm the mother of a type 1 diabetic. And I reached out to you today because I heard your story of Arden. And though my story isn't exactly similar to yours, it just really hit me in the heart because I've been through it and I know exactly how you feel. So I just kind of wanted to talk about my story today and maybe help other mothers or other parents who are going through it, because at the beginning it's really, really hard and really, really scary. And right now we're 6 years in, and so far everything's okay. Sugars could be a little bit better, but I mean, we're still healthy.
You're doing okay.
So, yeah.
Tell me, I mean, something about something that I've shared struck you. What was it?
Are you sure? Because it's really like personal information that you shared, and it might really trigger you, actually.
Did I say it on the podcast?
Yes, you did.
Don't worry. I'm not a triggered person. I'll be okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Because it really, like, it triggered me, and I was like, oh my God.
Oh,
so.
Well, do you not want to say it? That's okay.
No. It's okay. It's for you. It's just, I don't want to bring back like your memories, you know?
Don't worry. I've been married for 25 years, Krystal. You can't hurt me.
Okay. Well. So it was with the episode where you were talking about Arden when she had her seizure at 2 years old, or 2, I think it was.
Right.
And she was talking about how she like couldn't see and stuff like that, and like it just really like struck me. Like, my son has said things like that before, and he was diagnosed so young as well. And I just really I was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And I heard your story, and I listened to a lot of your podcasts, not all, I'm not going to lie, I didn't listen to every single one. You have a lot. Mm-hmm. But I have listened to a lot of them, and I just felt maybe like, you know, I heard you doing interviews with other people with diabetes, with people living with people with diabetes, and so on and so forth. And I figured, you know, maybe I could share my story, like I said, and just try and reach out to other people. But yeah, that episode where like you were talking about Arden describing her seizure, and you even put the video clip. I was a mess. I was crying. I was so emotional, and it really hit me deep.
Did I put the audio in the episode, or did I like post the video online for you to find?
I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure you put the audio in your in the episode, because I don't think I did any further searching other than just playing like the next episode on my podcast app.
Okay. Then so for people who are listening now, we were what were we doing? We were videotaping Arden for something. And it wasn't about that. And it was about something completely different. Or no, that's not even true. We had the video camera was up. I know this is people are like, why do you need a video camera? Because my phone has, but back then there was no video. First of all, there were no cell phones, but that's not the point. I had a video camera, but was set up already, and it wasn't on. And Arden and I were talking about something, and she began to talk about what it was like to have a seizure. And I just pushed record on the camera and just let it run. And she didn't really know for a while that it was running. And it was interesting because she was so young. She described things. Gosh, this is going back in my memory. I saw colors, which I took to mean like she wasn't seeing anything. Like she was blind. She wasn't seeing. She thought she sounded like a monster. And that's because she was grunting, like she had lost the ability to speak during it. And she thought the colors were pretty. Am I remembering this right? That she was seeing?
I don't remember exactly, because it was a while ago that I had listened to the podcast.
Yeah.
But it was generally about that. And I know you had also posted, I think, a video, or you were talking about posting a video or something like that, about where you were fighting a scary low, like on the camera, and you decided to post it, and that one really hit me deep too, and that was really the one that really made me like reach out to you, because those I've had. You've
had. So tell me a little bit. You have type 1?
Yes. No, my son.
Your son
is a type 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old was he when he was diagnosed?
He was 8 months old, so he was the youngest child ever to be diagnosed in the hospital that he's followed at, and he was really like an anomaly. And we were seeing, I mean, he still has his whole diabetes team and everything, but at the beginning of his diagnosis, like everybody in the hospital was interested in him. And for the first good year, we weren't left alone, because everyone wanted to know and see this special case, because it had only happened once before that a child that young had been diagnosed in his hospital, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we've been doing this for about 6 years.
Okay.
And it was really, really hard in the beginning. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, being the youngest ever, did they have trouble helping him? Did they not know quite what to do, or did it seem like they had it under control?
No, they kind of sent us away from the hospital. We spent so he was diagnosed. He was brought to the hospital because he was in really, really bad DKA, and he was in a coma for about 2.5 days. And when we were told his diagnosis, they basically just told me it was a waiting game to see if he ever woke up again.
Oh my gosh.
And it was really scary, and I'll never forget the feeling of watching my infant son, just crying and screaming because he was terrified. And then he just passed out in my arms, and they were like, well, we're going to see if he wakes up. And I was like, excuse me, what? You know? So yeah, it was really, really, really traumatizing. And
can you tell me, do you remember what his blood sugar was?
33 mmol. I don't know what that is in American.
I have a conversion chart on my website. I'll go look real quick.
Okay.
Juiceboxpodcast.com. Blood glucose calculator. So minimals, it was 33. Oh, 594.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for an 8-month-old, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's,
of course.
Yeah. And I know that his A1C was around 11 or 12 when he first got diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
Yeah,
let's,
so he was really high.
do you mind picking through it a little bit? So is he
No, go ahead.
your first, second, third child?
Yeah, he's my only child.
Okay. And
And yeah, go.
so healthy up until you noticed what?
Well, so when he was born, they told me that his sugars were high, but not high enough to be concerned. So I was like, okay, well, that's weird. And we were kept in the hospital for 5 days because he was really, really badly jaundiced. He was premature by like 1 day. So like technically a full term is 38 weeks, and he was born at 37 weeks and 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
So he's technically premature by 1 day. So I have no idea that is like anything for account, like to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so when he was born, they told me that his sugars were really high, and they kept us there for 5 days because he was jaundiced, and they monitored his levels constantly. And then by the time we were released from the hospital, they told us that it was okay, but just maybe to come back and check every now and then, because after where I live, 6 weeks after we have a checkup, the nurse comes to our house and checks on the baby, checks on us and stuff like that. And they checked his blood gas levels, and they were okay, she said. So we left it at that.
At the time of his birth, did anyone mention diabetes or use those words?
Not at all. Nope, not at all. Even, okay, so then when he was around 2-3 months old, he started having seizures. And I couldn't figure out why. They weren't normal seizures like you see in a TV. His arm would start shaking while he was nursing, and then his other arm would start shaking, and then his whole body would be like convulsing, but just lightly. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So at first I figured maybe it was just like weird baby spasms. You know how babies don't have control of their muscles? And I was like, that's a little weird, but it's okay. So I didn't really do anything about it for a couple of weeks until I was nursing him one day, and he had like a full-on convulsion. And so I recorded it because his seizures were so few and far in between. There was never any consistency. And so I recorded that like really bad convulsion because his whole body was trembling and he was shaking while he was nursing.
Right.
And so when I brought him to the hospital, they put on, I can't remember if it's the EEG or EKG, the one that goes on the head to map the brain waves. And so they watched his brain waves. His brain waves were normal. And then so they sent me home and never called me back. And that really makes me angry because we have a 3-month-old having a seizure. And because his brainwave is normal, they didn't offer to check anything else. And so I went home with this child who was seizing. And yeah, that was pretty much it. I was told that he was okay. There was nothing wrong. And so I kind of lived with him until he was about 7-8 months old, having these seizures every now and then. And he was he would cry a lot as a baby, which I kind of just chalked up to being colicky. You know, that's like a normal thing. But in hindsight, I realized that he was uncomfortable because he was literally starving to death because his sugars were too high, because he would nurse all the time, all day, all day long, all night. And when he started eating food, he would eat and chug water like I've never seen.
Right.
And so I realize now in hindsight that it was because he was a diabetic. You know what I mean?
How old were you when you had him?
I was 21.
Okay. On your own or with somebody?
Well, I was with someone, but I was essentially on my own.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, because the only reason I asked, you said something that made it sound like you were by yourself, and I don't remember what it was. And what I was going to say is that it's sometimes in those really confusing situations, it's very helpful to be able to bounce it off of somebody and be like, this seems weird, right? Looking back, how old is he now?
Now he's 7.
He's 7.
No, sorry, 6. He'll be 7 soon.
Okay. Looking back now, do you think he had diabetes his whole life? Do you think he was born with it?
Yep, entirely. And when I was pregnant with him, I got really, really, really huge. And I was insanely swollen, like record level swollen. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have gestational diabetes, but I was like on the brink of that and preeclampsia. And I believe that those conditions in me kind of maybe triggered it in him. Yeah. If you understand what I mean, because he was born.
Well, yeah. And, so I don't know. I mean, that goes beyond my understanding, but but it just sounds to me like if his blood sugar was elevated when he was born, and then there's this constant being uncomfortable, some seizures, constant nursing. I mean, it sounds like diabetes, undiagnosed.
Yeah, it makes me feel like a terrible person. And I know that I shouldn't feel like a terrible person because I'm like, I'm not going to judge myself for mistakes that I made, But the worst part is that I was raised with diabetic parents. And I was raised to recognize the signs and symptoms, but I didn't think it was possible in a baby. I knew it was possible in a child, but I didn't know it was possible in infants. So every single time he came up with a new symptom, I just dismissed it. Like when he used to wet through his diapers at night, I would put him these super heavy, like reusable diapers. So they were like big, thick cloths.
Yeah.
And he would pee right through them in like 2 hours. And I was like, well, maybe he just wets the bed super heavy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And everything that he came up with, I just blew it off. And now I look in hindsight and I realize how many symptoms he had for so long until he finally like was on death's door. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Krystal, it's a little hard to hear you with the voice behind.
Sorry.
No,
give me 1 second.
Sure.
I'm going to mute the sound for 1 second. I'm going to move somewhere else.
That's fine. Thank you. While Krystal finds a quieter place, I have time to do this. Gvoke HypoPen has no visible needle and is a premixed autoinjector of glucagon for treatment of very low blood sugar in adults and kids with diabetes ages 2 and above. Find out more. Go to gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used in patients with insulinoma or pheochromocytoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk. So the fact is, we all need medical supplies, but it's not a fact that getting them needs to be difficult. And instead of doing a classic US Med ad today, I'm going to tell you a story. Arden's home from school and she's sick. Turns out she may have a sinus infection and she's pretty wrecked. So we got out Arden's blood ketone meter to make sure that she doesn't develop ketones while she's fighting this illness. And she doesn't feel well. I mean, she's beat up. She's feverish and has a headache and her nose is full and she can't breathe. And I say to her, listen, let's check your ketones to make sure. Well, after about the 4th or 5th time that the test strip wouldn't work, she was getting sick and tired of it. We had poked her finger like 5 times and each time nothing happened. And I was irritated and I felt like an idiot. I was like, what's going wrong here? But you know what was going wrong? Our old supplier sent us the wrong test strips. And they were in a box that was so similar to the correct test strips, none of us noticed. Now, when you think of why you might want to use US Med, they've asked me to tell you about always having fast and free shipping. They always provide 90 days worth of supplies. They accept Medicare nationwide and over 800 private insurers. I tell you about their A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, etc., etc. They've got Freestyle Libre 3 and Dexcom G6, and you can get Omnipod from there in tandem and blah, blah. I tell you that stuff all the time, right? Here's what I don't tell you, is that when your kid is sick and everybody is just on edge, it's nice to reach into a drawer and pull out the thing you expected to have. That's it. usmed.com/juicebox. We've been using them for quite some time now. It's a lovely experience. I hope you give them a try. You can also call 888-721-1514. Call today or go online, get your free benefits check, and get started with US Med. I know it sounds like, I got to switch everything over and it's going to suck and everything, but doesn't it suck now with whoever you're using? And maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you know what? Fine, don't switch. But if you're fighting constantly with your diabetes supply distributor, do yourself a favor and check out US Med. I'm going to get you back to Krystal now. She does find a quieter spot. But I first want to remind you that if you need any of the things that were mentioned today by the advertisers, using my link supports the show. That's it. I don't make money every time you buy something or anything like that. It's as easy as if the advertisers see people coming through the podcast, they buy more ads. When they buy more ads, I can spend my whole life sitting here in front of this microphone making a podcast for you. So if you have the need, please use my links. Thank you very much.
Okay, I don't know if this is any better.
Well, let's
Hold on
try.
a second. I found a quiet hallway, but there's there's vents. Hold on a second. Is it still too loud for you?
No, that's good.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm going to stay here then. It's isolated and not much is going on here.
Cool. Tell people you're running from the law. Is that correct?
No. No, just trying to find a quiet area in a really big industrial office building.
Yeah. Well, this sounds good. Thank you. Well, I was going to ask you, what do you mean you grew up with parents with diabetes?
So my mom was a type 1 diabetic and my father was a type 1 diabetic.
Wow.
And yeah.
Did they meet each other at a
type?
type 1 diabetes mixer or something like that? Or
No. My father was diagnosed as a child and my mother got diagnosed in her 20s, I think.
Were they together when that happened?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That really is crazy. Okay, so all right, so let's take a little bit of a detour. What was it like growing up with two type 1s as parents?
I mean, that's a really loaded question. My mother was always sick. Her diabetes really wasn't controlled at all.
Okay.
So I was 10 when my mother died. So I don't really know exactly the truth of what happened and so on and so forth. I can't give you that much information because I was a kid. You know what I mean? But I know I grew up with her always sick, always in the hospital, always vomiting. I know that she died in 2003. And before that, she had a pancreas transplant and she had all kinds of organ transplants. And basically just over time, her body was shutting down because it was poorly managed. Now, I don't know what happened to make it that way. Because like I said, I was a kid, I didn't exactly ask questions.
Right.
And as for my father, he took good care of himself and he's still alive.
Do you think, with hindsight, I don't know if have you had conversations with your father? Was it just mismanagement for your mom?
No, I don't really speak to my father.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's even something. So does your father know your son has type 1?
Yep, he does. He was there when he got diagnosed.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Wow. Krystal, you're a little puzzle. Okay. Well, let's see if we can put the pieces together.
Okay.
So you talked about feeling badly, and
yeah.
I would, probably not be the first person to tell you that that's not really a reasonable thing to feel. I mean, you're 21. Sounds like you're pretty much on your own. Just because you knew some of the signs of diabetes who would think of it?
It's because when I was a kid, every time I went to the washroom a lot or something like that, or if I was excessively thirsty, my parents would check my sugars as a kid to make sure that I didn't get it,
Yeah.
My brother also has diabetes as well as my uncle. So it's all over my family.
Hey, tell me again, your mom was how old when she got it?
She was in her 20s, I believe. I'm not sure. Right. If I understood correctly, I think she got it as gestational diabetes and it just never went away or something like that. And then it turned into type 1. I honestly don't know. Like I said, I was 10 when she died, so I didn't really get the whole story.
Do you have any autoimmune issues yourself?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Hashimoto's?
No.
Thyroid, nothing? Okay. Gluten allergy?
Nope.
No? Okay. All right. Interesting. Very interesting, actually, Krystal. You really are something here. Hold on a second. And you're French Canadian?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Are you around Toronto?
No, but I'm the next big metropolitan city.
Gotcha.
Right. And the French-speaking one.
Gotcha. I think I know. This podcast teaches me a lot about Canada. Sometimes not all accurate stuff, but I still learn things. Okay. So, baby's diagnosed. Okay. I guess we're at the point where they took him from you and said, let's see if he wakes up. Obviously he did, but how long did that take?
It took about 2.5 days. I can't really remember. All I know is that I was walking around his crib at the emergency room, just bawling my eyes out. I didn't sleep for days. And we stayed in the ICU for about 2 or 3 days until he woke up. Mm-hmm. And then we were transferred to a regular room where we stayed there for 5 days while they got his sugars under control.
Okay.
Under control, sorry.
And then how do you manage an 8-month-old? Is it with injections?
Yeah, he's still on injection now. He's too scared to get the pump. So,
okay.
I mean, it's his disease. I'm going to let him wait until he's ready. We finally got him on a Dexcom this year. And thank Jesus, because that made my life so much easier.
So for 6 years almost, he was just doing shots and using a meter.
Yeah.
And how was that going?
To be honest, I really like the meter better than the Dexcom.
Okay, how come?
Just because, I guess because I'm used to it. And usually when I see on the Dexcom that he's going high or that he's going low, I really, really overcompensate. So I'll give him too much insulin and he'll drop down too fast, or I'll give him too much food and he shoots up way too high because I'm scared watching it beep and go down or go up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So with the meter, I never had that fear. You know what I mean? I just waited till the next time I pricked him and would see where his numbers are at. But at the same time, I do love the fact that I can watch him in the night with my Dexcom, because I used to get up every night.
You're breaking up.
And
Krystal,
I would get up at 2, 3 in the morning. Yeah.
Can you hear me? You're breaking up a little bit.
Is it good now?
I don't know. You're talking and disappearing and then coming back.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Is it good now?
I can't say that was good, no. It sounded like a weak signal.
Hold on a second.
By the time this is over, you're going to
Hold on. I'm going to unplug my...
You're going to be on the roof.
I'm going to unplug my thing and plug it back in. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Is it okay now?
I think so. You were in the middle of explaining to me why you don't like the Dexcom as much as the meter, but it sounded like you're just overreacting to what you're seeing.
Yes, exactly. Okay. But however, I really do like the fact that with the Dexcom, in the night I can check him. I can check his sugars without having to get out of my bed and stuff like that, without pricking him. I like the fact that I don't have to hurt him every time I want to check him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, every single night I would get up 2, 3 times in the night to check his sugars just to make sure he wasn't dropping or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so now with the Dexcom, it's really saved me. It's just me. I have to get used to the patterns and the roller coaster rides. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just just don't overcompensate or undercompensate. Well, so can I ask you like a management question? Are there a lot of ups and downs?
Yeah.
There are.
Yeah. I still don't have good control.
Okay. So, I mean, I think if you're looking for my opinion, you would start by making sure that his basal insulin is good. How much does he weigh?
He weighs about 50 pounds and he takes 7 units of basal, which apparently is like a lot. And his nutritionist hates me because of the way I run, not because of the way I run sugars, but the way I do his doses. She can't stand it, but then like every time I try it her way, his sugars are like sky high to the point that his Dexcom doesn't even read it. So I just keep doing my way and do the best that I can.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not there, obviously, and I have no firsthand knowledge of what's been happening. But, I mean, if his basal was more like 0.3 an hour, that would make more sense to me. So, but wait, hold on a second. That's where you're at now. 7 divided by 24 is 0.3. But if we did, let's see, actually, wait a minute. And he's 50 pounds?
Yeah, around there, 50 or 53.
Okay, let me ask you some questions. Overnight, does he sit stable?
Yeah, where? He doesn't budge.
At what number?
Depends on what he goes to bed at.
So if he goes to bed at it, it stays at it?
Yeah, if he goes to bed at, like, say I'll put him to bed at 7, whatever, he'll stay at 7. He'll drop down to maybe 5, and then he'll start going back up around after the dawn phenomenon. He goes back up.
Okay.
Which is usually around 3, 4 in the morning for us.
So a 7's like a 126 here in the States. What if you put him to bed at a 6? Would he stay at a 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, usually.
But same thing, if you put him to bed at a 10, he'd stay at a 10.
Yeah.
All right. So you think his basal's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
And so then
it's just,
where are you falling short?
It's just the issues with that. It's with eating because he's so difficult to get to eat. And he really loves to do this thing where he asks for the food and I make him the food. And then as soon as I give him the insulin, he doesn't want it.
Kids. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a spot where if you had a pump, you could like
Uh-huh.
bolus a little bit, and
Yeah.
then once you knew he was eating, give him the rest.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why I want it.
Yeah.
That's why I want the pump. But like I said, it's his body. He's afraid. He doesn't want it. I'm not going to force it on him, you know?
Is there any amount of intake that you can always count on? Like even if the meal's 50 carbs, can you count on at least 10 of them going in?
No, not consistently.
Okay, so you're not pre-bolusing meals, so you're spiking high. Do you?
Yeah, and then dropping down after. I used to pre-bolus meals. Last year, he was really good at eating. And so last year, I had really fantastic control.
Right.
His A1C from the year before was at, no, not even year before, the months before was at, I think, 9 or 10. And then I had gotten it down to 7. And which is
Man,
okay, you know?
that's a nice reduction from 9 to 10 to 7. It's
Yeah,
really, really wonderful.
exactly. Yeah, and so last year was fantastic. And then this year, he started this whole eating phase. And then now he only wants like to eat sugar and stuff like that because he knows that if I give him the insulin, that's what he's going to get, you know?
So right now he's spiking up, crashing down. You're over treating the low and sending him back. So you're just jumping up and down all day long.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so the first meal is the end of the day. It just ruins everything until you get all the food out of him, get him stable, and put him to bed.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And also the physical activity. Some days he's running around and climbing my walls. Other days he's just sitting there watching TV. So
yeah.
It's hard. It's hard with a 6-year-old.
No, I don't disagree. It is it's not easy. And like I said, with a pump, you could at least put a little bit in and stop the big spike. But, you know, in order to do that with MDI, you'd have to shoot him twice. Does he mind the shots?
Yes and no. He says no, but I hurt him sometimes. Like when I give him the injections, I can see that it hurts him. But I know that he says no just because he's afraid of the pump.
You think he doesn't want to make you feel bad?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know the answer, so the rest of it's him wanting to eat more, you know, consistently, I guess. I'm sorry that's a struggle. I do think he'll get a little older and it'll stop. I was going to say, I wonder if you didn't, I mean, he's so young though. Like, I don't know how easy it is to like explain big ideas to a 6-year-old. I don't remember anymore. But you know, like what if you said to him, look, it's fine if you don't eat everything, but you know, we're going to inject twice then to be sure that we don't get you too high or too low. I wonder if eventually he wouldn't just, it sounds kind of, I don't know how this sounds actually, but I wonder if to avoid the second shot, if he wouldn't just eat his lunch as an example. No,
he wouldn't care.
He wouldn't care. So is he not hungry or is he distracted?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I gotcha. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, no trouble. Is there a lot of, I'm trying to figure out what made you so emotional hearing about Arden's.
Well, it was, like I said, it was really just hearing about the lows and the scary low, because I've had those so many times. I've luckily avoided seizures after his diagnosis, but like it just brought back my own memories of the times that I've had to shove everything I could find in his mouth while he's like half conscious, and it really just made me want to reach out and just kind of say, you know, I feel you, and to let others hear my story about how many times I've shoved things in his mouth while he was dropping down to the floor, and you know, just basically I wanted to let other parents know that it's normal to be scared, and that it's going to take time to get used to it. Because I see on all these Facebook groups and stuff like that, these support groups, all these parents saying like, oh, is it ever going to get better? And it doesn't, but you learn to adjust. You know what I mean? And I was actually recommended your podcast in one of those Facebook groups.
Wow.
And I'd say for me personally, it took about 2 years to feel comfortable, like okay, and 4 years to feel confident. Now I change his ratios and his doses and stuff like that myself. I don't call his team anymore,
right? Because
I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Well, but it was just really like emotional for me to listen to you when you were talking about with the video and you caught the low while you were like feeding her and you decided to post it on your website or whatever. And like, I've been there, I've done that. And
well, it's so much more difficult when they're that small too, right? I mean, at 8 months old, what did he weigh?
Oh God, 17 to 20 pounds, maybe.
Right. And then probably didn't gain that much weight over the next year or so even.
No. Right, I mean, now at 6, he's only at 50 pounds.
Right. He's small to begin with. Do you ever have his thyroid checked?
Yep, every year at his annual checkup.
Would you tell me what his TSH is? Do you know?
I don't know. Sorry. Everything's normal though. She told me. Yeah. She told me the number, but last time, but I can't remember.
Do me a favor. The next time you dig out that number, if it's over 2, but they're calling it normal, why don't you press them to medicate him? I know they want to call that normal, but over 2, like over 2.1, there's a thyroid episode you could listen to that would tell you. But over about 2.1, 2.2, if he could be having symptoms and you wouldn't know. And I'll tell you that Arden was the tiniest person in her school. And then we figured out she had a thyroid issue. She got on the thyroid replacement, and she's like, Arden's 5'7" now. But at 10, 11, 12 years old, Arden was like 5'3". She weighed like 75 pounds. Okay. And so I just know that a lot of doctors will say, no, that's in range. Like they'll call a 4 TSH in range because I guess technically it's in range. There are some hospitals that won't medicate it till like an 8, which is insane. But who knows? Like, I wonder if, I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I would check if I was you.
Okay.
That's all.
I'll ask next time I go.
Yeah. And if it comes back higher than 2 or so and you like write me, I'll point you to the right stuff and let you make a decision for yourself. But, I mean, is he lethargic? Does he lose his hair? Does he have trouble? Is he constipated?
No, none of that. No.
Okay, good. Well, that's good. Maybe I'm 100% wrong. That'd be great if I was.
I hope so.
Yeah, right. You need something to go good. Do you worry about getting diabetes?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's all in my family, and I'm not going to lie. I don't have the best eating habits, so I know I'm not helping myself. So I am worried, but at least if ever I do get it, I'll have him by my side with me,
Well, yeah, you can definitely do it together. That's for sure. But with both of your parents having it and your mom having the end that she had and your son getting it, I just wondered like if if it was something you worried about. Would you call it a constant concern or just something you're aware of?
No, just something I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't really live my life worrying like that. Yeah. If it comes, it comes, and I'll live with it when I have to.
Gotcha. Well, you'll definitely know when it happens.
Yep.
Yeah, if it happens. Excuse me.
Yeah.
You've got enough practice.
Thanks for your wishful thinking.
No, well, sorry, I just misspoke. I don't necessarily think you're getting diabetes. Is it difficult? How are you finding school? He just must have started school recently, right? Well, you are gone. Your voice disappeared, Krystal. You're not there right now.
Can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay. It was difficult, but they take really good care of his diabetes. The only thing that's kind of enraging for me is that we don't really have any like trained staff. There's no nurse. There's no nothing like that. I know in the States you guys have like your 504 plans or whatever it is, but we don't really have that here, at least not that I know of. We have our Canadian equivalent, but it doesn't really do much. Like in the States, it's really a lot more severe there. Okay. And I mean, the staff that are there, they do the best that they can, but I just really wish we could have someone like on him 24/7, so that way it's not.
Well, how does it work then? Because he's 6. I mean, is he giving himself shots?
Yes, at the moment he gives it to himself.
And do you guys go back and forth like through text or something?
No, we call his school at lunchtime, and his father is calling right now because I'm on with you. His father's calling right now, and he's going to tell the nurse to put him on the phone. Not the nurse, sorry, the secretary to put him on the phone.
Right.
And then he gives it himself, and that's it.
That's it. If this is too personal, don't answer me, but are you and his father together?
No.
No. Okay. Do you split time with him? Does he go to his, does the management change from one home to the other?
Yeah.
How so?
Yeah.
If you're able to say.
The sugars at his father's house are much more out of control than at my house, because I don't really allow snacking in my house, and he does. And also, I don't really give a lot of junk food, and he kind of just lets like whatever and deal with the consequences later. So
there's nothing. Is that a conversation? Have you ever had a conversation with him? And
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't help much.
No.
Okay.
No.
It's a very common issue. I know that for sure.
However, my wife takes better control of his sugars than I do. It's like she was born to be his mother. I don't understand. She's phenomenal with his sugars.
Okay. Oh, so there is somebody who is she mostly, or who's mostly involved when he's with you?
Her.
Okay.
Yeah. His father just calls the school because he has the time.
That sounded, that statement sounds like there's a half an hour worth of complaining you could do afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
He has the time. It's not why we're here, so we'll skip over that, Krystal.
Yeah.
But you made me laugh.
That's another story.
Yeah, no, you made me laugh when you said that. I was like, oh, I think I know what she means by that. Sorry, hold on. You took me by surprise. Give me a second.
Okay.
Take a drink. You took me by surprise with that. That was great. Okay, that's funny. So do you think he'll go for a pump, or like what's holding him back at this point?
I don't know. I hope he will eventually one day, because he has the Dexcom, and I know that he's happier that we don't prick him as often. I still do check him sometimes just to make sure that it's accurate. And sometimes if his Dexcom is having a sensor fail, I'll use the thing until it comes back online or until I change it, whatever. So I know he's happier that he has to be pricked less. And I'm trying to get him to understand that, my son is like really, really sensitive to carbs. And if I give him like 10 carbs, he's going to jump up, which isn't much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for every time I feed him, I have to give him insulin and then give him insulin again to correct after. And you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So
have you told him that, like have you gone through it and said, hey, if we had a pump, we wouldn't have to do the shots, and you'd be, why don't you tell him it would be easier to snack?
I've you know what? I might bring that up. That might help, actually. He's always hungry. This kid is like a 16-year-old in a 6-year-old body. I don't understand.
Well, yeah, maybe that would help him, like, just kind of, I don't know, just get a clear, like, big picture understanding of the whole thing. I mean, I think you just have to find a way to say it to him that matters. In a way
he understands.
Yeah, that matters to him. Forget understanding it. He's probably understanding what you're saying. He doesn't care. You gotta find, like, I'd be like, hey, when this happens and we don't do this, it's because we have to inject, and blah. I don't know what you could do to get him moving in that direction. Because the truth is, I mean, listen, if you put a pump on him and he hated it, I don't imagine you'd make him stay on it. But
no, of course not.
I think that my expectation would be that once he gets on it, a week or two later, he's not going to remember not wanting it. And
yeah, it's true. That's kind of what we did with the Dexcom. Kind of just forced him on it. And I said, listen, just try it for a week.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, we can take it off. And he likes it now. It doesn't even hurt him to put it on. It's crazy.
Right.
This big needle in this tiny little body. And I'm like, wow, you just take it like a champ.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. I have to tell you, like, what I usually say on the podcast is that I'm not into letting kids make medical decisions. I mean, I don't want to do something they absolutely don't want to do, but a lot of times, kids just think, listen, I'm saying kids, people in general, forget kids, everybody's resistant to change. I mean, if you want to make people, like, make an adult upset, change the way Facebook looks. People, like, lose their minds. You know what I mean?
It's so true.
Oh my God. They moved the button.
I'm one of them.
Yeah. Why did they change the color? Where's this at? Like, it's you'd think it was the end of the world. And, And I think that everyone's like that. I think change is hard for people, but the truth is I don't know. You know, I've been through a lot of bad things in my life, and in this moment, I don't remember any of them. So,
Same.
Yeah, right? So, you know, here's the pump. We're wearing it. What makes this right for you, kid? I'd start dealing dollar bills into his hand, or not dollar bills. What do you got, loonies up there or something like that? I'd start ripping those loonies into his hand till he looked happy. I was like, there you go. Wear a pump. You're fine. We'll go out and spend this money afterwards. Get yourself something nice, kid.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I'm okay with bribing children in certain situations. I mean, not for everything, but I mean, because if you could put him in a position where he'd understand it, you know, maybe a week or two later, you'd say, hey, isn't this great? We haven't stuck you with a needle in, you know, forever. He might be thrilled by it. And then all of a sudden you can pre-bolus your meals better. Then all of a sudden you can, you know, it just changes everything.
Yeah.
It really does.
So I've heard.
Yeah.
I'm also not gonna lie. I'm a little afraid of the pump too, just because I'm afraid of pump failures. But I know with the Dexcom, I don't have to like worry about that because I'll see if there's a pump failure. I'll see his sugar is rising.
Yeah.
But that was always a fear of mine too. So I understand his fear, but I also think that it would be better if he did. You know what I mean? At least try.
It's so interesting because that is everyone's fear.
Yeah, because it's terrifying.
Except that, do you ever see it like when's the last time you like popped onto like a Facebook group and you heard about the scores and scores of people whose pumps failed all the time? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really happen with any great frequent. I mean, I oversee a Facebook group with like 25,000 people in it.
Oh boy.
I don't know the last time I saw somebody say, hey, my pump stopped working and I didn't get insulin and I went into DKA. I haven't, like, I get the concern, but to your point, you're always aware of what his blood sugar is with the Dexcom. You're not going to get too far away from not having insulin before you know it.
True.
You know, that's all. I mean, I get the concern, but I don't think it's going to really rear its head in your life, though.
Yeah, it's like a 1 in a million chance.
I don't know the odds, Krystal, but I think it's uncommon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least in my experience. I mean, Arden's been using an Omnipod.
That's the one I want.
Okay. Well, there you go. She's been using an Omnipod since she's 4. She's almost 18. So that's 14 years. And we once had a bent cannula where she wasn't getting enough insulin. And her blood sugar was rising. We saw that it was rising. It happened overnight. We did sleep through it for a little bit. We got her up. We overhydrated her, got her ketones back down again, and, you know, put a new pump on her. But my point is that, I mean, what is my point? Hold on. I'm going to pull up a calculator here to make my point. Arden's been using it basically for 14 years, right? There are 365 days in a year. You put a pod on about every 3 days. So divided by 3, you wear 121 pods a year times 14 years. Arden's worn about 1,700 pods, and one of them had a bent cannula. You know what I'm saying?
Well, when you put it that way, it's a lot less scary.
You mean when you think about it realistically? Yeah. I mean, to me, that's that. I don't know. I get the pump. I don't look back, but we'll see.
I'll bring it up to him tonight.
Yeah. Listen, tell him the guy on the podcast had to do it. He don't know. It's
I guess I'll have to show him the podcast as proof.
2022. People on TikTok look famous to him. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
I saw something the other day. This girl, I don't know. Krystal, listen, it seems to me that girls on TikTok are making money bouncing up and down. That seems to be what's happening. And I saw a video somewhere. And my daughter's like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, what is this girl doing? And she goes, oh, I think she's trying to make money. And I was like, gotcha. And then she goes, is that? And then she says the girl's name. I'm like, you know that person? And she's like, I don't know her, but I know her name. I'm like, you know someone's name because they wear a loose shirt and bounce up and down on TikTok? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, well, the world's very strange. You know how hard George Clooney had to work to be George Clooney? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Turns out
nowadays the internet blows up with the most random things possible.
Super easy. I'm just saying, you let my voice come out of a speaker, that kid will think, oh, I have to listen to him.
That's true.
It's ridiculous, but what the heck? You know what I mean?
If it works, it works, though.
Hey, listen, I go with what works. So, Krystal, tell me, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to?
Not that I can think of. I spoke about his diagnosis. I spoke about his scary lows.
Mm-hmm. I do want to dig a little more into that if you feel comfortable that we've gone over everything.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
So from 8 months, Josh, geez, isn't this crazy? 8 months old to 6 or 7. He's almost 7, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically 6-ish years, a little more, the kid's had diabetes. But you've been through so many different versions of type 1, like with an infant, with a toddler, with a young child. Like it probably feels like you've started over a half a dozen times.
Yeah, it's really hard. Every growth spurt that he goes to, it's like I'm back at the beginning and I have no idea what to do.
Right. Yeah.
Because the insulin, the hormones change the insulin so much, and sometimes it gets used up like crazy, and I can give him no insulin and he'll be dropping low super fast. Other days I can give him like so much insulin and it goes nowhere.
It really is like, I'm thinking about it. You've raised like 3 or 4 different people with diabetes already. Like seriously, you know what I mean? Like, and it's going to keep changing. Like
I'm so scared for when he's a teenager.
Yeah, when you're 40, you're going to have the wisdom of like 100-year-old person.
That's just on my life experiences alone, not including him.
Well, we haven't gotten into that yet, but I just like, I mean, how many lows do you think you saw in the first couple of years that were frightening to you?
Oof. Frightening ones, the ones that really burned into my memory, you mean?
Yeah.
Good question. Hold on. I'd say at least a good handful, right. Maybe 1, 2, 3. I'd say about 4 or 5 of the really scary ones.
How much?
The ones where I narrowly avoided hospitals.
How much of them? How many of those do you think were made more frightening by your age?
By my age or his age?
Yours. I mean, his is obvious, but like, I don't know though. You sound like you might have had a tough life. Like I'm guessing. So like maybe you're a little more grown up than some people are when they're 21 and 22 years old. But my son is 22. If I put him in charge of a hamster, I'm not sure it would be alive. So you're 21, 22 years old with an 8-month-old, a 1-year-old who has diabetes, working just with a meter and shots. Like, are you like some kind of like super mature person, or were you freaking out?
I mean, I was freaking out, but I was ready to have a child, whether they were healthy or disabled or whatever. So I was ready for whatever came my way. And I just kind of took it in stride, did what I had to do, did it all again the next day, and managed it as best as I could.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
What were you going to say?
I said that's wonderful. Why do you doubt yourself? You're so confident otherwise.
I don't really doubt myself, to be honest. No, I don't really doubt myself with his diabetes. It's just hard to like, I try as much as I can to get his sugars under control, and like, I just don't see results, and it's frustrating. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating, especially when I'm looking at a Dexcom and it's a freaking roller coaster ride. It's like, man, I'm giving it my all, and it's just like doing what it wants,
Yeah, no, I understand. I used the wrong word. I said doubt. I meant before, like it felt like you were punishing yourself a little bit. Like,
well, I mean, mom guilt.
Yeah, I guess so. Right. That thing is very, very, very real.
Yeah. Big time. You
can't get away from it. I don't know what happens. Nope. The minute the baby comes out, you just lose your mind.
Yep. Nothing I can do is ever good enough.
It never goes away, apparently. So good luck.
Oh, great.
My children are like, pretty grown at this point. I still look at my wife. I'm like, what are you beating yourself up about right now? Like, she's like,
well, I hope one day I'll be able to let it go, because I know logically speaking that it's normal that a 21-year-old would miss a diagnosis of a child. Like, the day that I brought him to the hospital, I didn't even notice anything was wrong with him. I just thought okay. Hold on, let me explain my story a little better. So the day that he was brought to the hospital. I was out at breakfast with my friends, and he was really like lethargic, and this will forever be burned into my brain, and it's a huge trauma for me. We were at the table, and the waitress brought us water to drink, and he took my huge mason glass and he chugged it all. And he was 8 months old. You know, they're not supposed to drink that much water. And I was like, oh my God, that's really weird. But it was like 40 something degrees Celsius. And I figured, you know, we're just in the middle of a heat wave. He's just really hot. And he was lethargic, and he wasn't really like getting up at the table like he normally was. And I just kind of attributed it to like a heat wave. He's just tired. Maybe he's cranky. Didn't sleep well the night before. He was nursing all night long that night. And my friend picked him up because he was crying after he drank all the water. And she was like, something's wrong with him. I'm like, really? Are you sure? Like, you know? And so she just kind of consoled him. And later on, I went about my day as normal. And then I realized later on in the day, after my friend had told me that something was wrong, and after witnessing an 8-month-old drink an entire mason jar of water, later on, I had brought him home, and I realized that he was breathing as if he was running a marathon.
Yeah.
And his whole chest was sucking in. And I was like, my God, something really is wrong here. But it took me like the whole day to really realize that something was wrong with my friggin' baby, like my own baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I really can't forgive myself about, especially since I know the signs of diabetes.
Wow. Krystal, Arden looked like a zombie for a number of days before we figured it out. Like she just wandered around she was only 2, and she wandered around, like she weighed 17 pounds. She was 2 years old, and she had a death stare, just a 1,000-yard stare. You couldn't interact with her really. She couldn't stand up for too long, and it still took us days to figure out like what was up.
Poor girl.
I know how you feel. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, right? It already happened. There's no point in stressing over it. But when I think about it, it really like tears me apart. You know what I mean? Thinking about the fact that someone else noticed before his own mother did. And then I went about my day just like kind of keeping an eye on him and like not really realizing there was something actually seriously wrong until I went to the hospital. And then we were in the hospital for all of, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes.
Right.
And then the way it works at my hospital is that you have to go in, they triage you, and then you go to the waiting room and they're going to call you to see the doctor. And they have one specific room that you're supposed to go back into if your condition worsens or changes, whatever. So we had been triaged, and then we were sent to the waiting room. And I went back in because he just kind of like collapsed in my arms. And he was, I don't want to say conscious because he wasn't really conscious, but his eyes were open. And I was like, something's really wrong with my baby. Like, you guys got to help me. And then so they did a quick urine test, I think, or a blood test. And they told me that he has type 1 diabetes. And after that, they were trying to get him like set up with the insulin drips and sugar drips and whatever. And he was just like screaming and crying in my arms. And then he passed out. And then they told me that they would let me know if he ever woke up. And I was like, huh,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
So
Krystal,
that's why I feel so guilty.
I know, but I'm going to say something completely obvious to you. That's not obviously is easier said than done, but you're going to have to get past that. You know, you don't want to keep beating yourself up about that, because look where you are now. You're doing a good job bringing his A1C down. You're aware of why you're having the issues that you're having. So it's not like you're just lost. You know what's going on, and you know how to fix it. And you have a pathway to maybe figuring it out with a pump, it sounds like. And he's going to get, I hope so. And he's going to get older, and it's going to be easier for him to, it's going to be easier for you to say, look, listen, I don't care. Just eat this, and he'll listen. And, I mean, and you've been through something that's so terrible and so difficult. The rest of it might end up seeming easy. You might be one of those people who just laughs, like, you're like, oh, yeah, this isn't hardly anything compared to when he was 2 years old or 3 years old.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah. Wow. All right, Krystal, I'm going to ask you one more question before I let you go.
Yep,
I cannot figure out your accent completely. So you're obviously French Canadian, but at the end of your words, you sound Spanish for a second.
Spanish? No.
But you're not, right?
I'm just French Canadian.
Yeah.
I'm an Anglophone in a French
Say it again.
province. I'm an Anglophone in a French province,
okay.
So I'm English speaking. But I guess I just pick up some of their mannerisms because I've been here my entire life.
Yeah, there's just a little at the end of your words sometimes. I'm like, I know she's not, but it sounds like a little. So I was trying to figure out what the rest of it was. You're born where you live?
Yep.
Yeah.
Born and raised.
Very cool. That's excellent. I love people's accents. I think they're super interesting.
So do I.
Yeah, I find them incredibly interesting. Mine must seem very boorish to you, but
you just sound American.
Do I? Oh, perfect. I'll take it. I'll take it. All right. Hold on one second for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. I also want to thank US Med for sponsoring this episode of the podcast and remind you that all you have to do to get started with US Med is go to usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. And don't forget, touchedbytype1.org. If you're looking for a great community around diabetes, check out the Juicebox Podcast on Facebook. It's Juicebox Podcast Type 1 Diabetes, a private group that is completely free for you to enter and use, with over 32,000 members in it. It is a jumping place with great people. You're going to find answers to your questions, and you're going to see conversations that you will find interesting, thought-provoking, and educational. If you're looking for some of those popular management series from the Juicebox Podcast, head over to juiceboxpodcast.com. Go up to the menu at the top, where you'll find links to the mental wellness, diabetes variables, diabetes pro tip, defining thyroid, defining diabetes, bold beginnings, algorithm pumping, Ask Scott and Jenny, After Dark, and links to so much more right at the top of the page. I want to thank you so much for sharing the show and for listening and subscribing and following and all the wonderful things that you do to support the podcast. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.